Welcome to Millennials Meet Liberty, your source for searing hot libertarian takes on the world's weekly headlines. Here's your host, Colt Thompson.
Welcome to episode number 21 of Millennials Meet Liberty with yours truly, Colt Thompson. Happy to be with you all today, as always, to kickstart 2020. Today is indeed January 1st, 2020, the start of a new decade. Some trolls on the internet keep saying that the decade doesn't really begin until the end of 2020. I don't really know. As far as I'm concerned, we're here in the new age of the Roaring 20s. Will it be a reenactment of the Roaring 20s? I don't know, but we shall see. So just wanted to mention a few things for you guys today before we dive into the goody goods. I will be recording and distributing one podcast per week in the year 2020 until my audience grows accordingly. So if I hit the proper amount of listenership, I will continue to feed the bear and I'll ramp it up to multiple episodes per week. But in the meantime, I need to navigate some political channels and waters on these social media outlets, as some liberal cucks who are already outraged me have done everything they possibly could to put a muzzle and stranglehold on my production here. So I'm in a little hot water with Facebook and some of the other outlets I market this podcast on, but it's a sure bet. I hired a consultant and we're going to get these things taken care of in the next few weeks, and we'll be back up and running and hopefully accumulating listenership month over month so I can start producing more things and really give you guys that awesome content that you're looking for. The libertarian perspective, one that's really cutthroat, punchy, leaves nothing on the table, and leaves you yearning for more. So what I got for you guys today is a few things I'm going to bounce around. I want to quickly talk about the NFL playoff bracket because I'm a diehard NFL fan and a diehard Buffalo Bills fan. So I want to lend credence to the fact that the Bills have made the playoffs for the second time in the last 20 years. So I'll be headed to Texas yet again and Houston this weekend to watch the game. So I want to make a few quick predictions, take a few minutes of your guys' time to do that. While I know everyone's not a football fan, it means a lot to me personally, so I want to get that off my chest. And then I'll dive in a little bit to the cryptocurrency world, the Bitcoin world, what to expect there on the horizon in 2020. And then also the election of 2020, what's going to transpire during the campaign season, what the outlook is for the candidates who are remaining, and what we can expect as far as an outcry from the public as the Iraq and Iran conflict arises and continues to boil up over there in the Middle East. So that's what I have for you today. Again, I'm going to keep these episodes relatively short, between 20 and 30 minutes tops. So here we go. So right now I'm going to pull up the playoff bracket. Again, this is more for me than for you guys because I want to quickly give my predictions for this wildcard weekend, maybe take a quick peek at what's going to happen in the action the next few weeks here as the Super Bowl comes to us on February 2nd this year. So what we have in terms of playoff games this weekend, we have the wildcard games. So we have the Titans against the Patriots. Tennessee travels to New England. I'm going to go out on a limb there and say the Patriots are furious about losing to Miami last week, so there'll be a little bit of blood in the water, some redemption. I got the Patriots handling the Titans relatively easily. I think the Titans are definitely the weakest team in the AFC side of things. And then Buffalo ventures to Houston. I mentioned that I'm going to go there. I got the Bills upending the Texans. It's not because I'm a biased Bills fan. It's because the Bills have a Super Bowl defense, arguably the best in the NFL, which will put a stop to Deshaun Watson. There's my prediction. And then Texans defense is abysmal. So the ground game in Buffalo should really, get them to where they need to be. So I think I'm going to see a pretty solid win there for Buffalo. So I got Buffalo and New England both winning in the AFC, subsequently to face the Ravens and Chiefs, respectively. Then the wild card side of things in the NFC, we have the Minnesota Vikings traveling to New Orleans to play the Saints. I got the Saints in a landslide victory there. I think the Saints are arguably one of the best teams in the NFL. I think they're going to have no problem dismissing Kirk Cousins and Minnesota. While Minnesota has the GOAT, Kirk Cousins, I don't see them doing much. I just don't think they have the firepower to overtake the Saints' high, potent offense. An aerial attack. Interesting note, Antonio Brown worked out for the Saints this past week, but there's not a snowball's chance in hell that he'll be signed before this game. And then finally, the Seahawks travel to Philly, which is odd. It's eyebrow raising. It's why people don't like the NFL playoff format, because the Eagles, in fact, had a worse record than the Seahawks, and yet the Seahawks have to travel from sea to shining sea to take on the Eagles. And that's because of how the divisional winnings works. The Eagles won their division, the NFC East, and had a piss poor record. It was just a weak division. And that lent them to having a home game versus the Seahawks, who had a lot better record, but had San Francisco, who ultimately won their division and got the bye. So I got the Seahawks gutting it out and beating the Eagles, and I have the Saints beating the Vikings, both of which to play the Packers and Niners. So that's my predictions for the NFL. I'm going to shift gears here and talk about what we normally talk about on this podcast, which is politics, the economy, the markets, and all of the hoopla around that. Because after all, politics is just Hollywood for ugly people, as the late, great Ronald Reagan says, and Ted Cruz likes to say a lot, because I think he recognizes that he's kind of an ugly motherfucker. So I mentioned that I talk about cryptocurrencies. I wanted to do that, give my general take on the landscape of cryptocurrencies headed into the future, which will come as a sort of angry resentments probably towards some of my listeners, in a sense that I'm not necessarily on the crypto bandwagon or Bitcoin bandwagon, and I really haven't been from the jump for various reasons. I know libertarians and free market, hard money, gold standard, all those types of individuals who want sound currency or want a currency outside of the normal fiat central banking system. I know they're not going to appreciate my take on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, but I've learned a lot just actually trading it myself and really keeping an eye on the market share and everything. So, or the market cap, that is. So I'm going to kind of flesh out a few of my thoughts heading into 2020 here. So about 10 years ago, probably not even, maybe 7 years ago, is when cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin really came to light in the public lens. So initially it was all of these nerds and really intelligent computer coder, economic free market type nerds, entrepreneurial types who saw it as the way of the future, cryptocurrency that is. So when they thought of cryptocurrency, they thought of a way to escape the pernicious monetary system that lends itself to inflation and devaluing of our currency and our dollars and our bank accounts, which is really robbing people of their wealth and purchasing power down the road. So cryptocurrency was this great idea that essentially we'd be able to trade currency, the cryptocurrency that is, instantaneously, purchase things with it, give it to people, hoard it, hodl it, as they call it, invest it, whatever you want to do with this cryptocurrency. It was a type of money or currency. It had inherent value. It was the thing that we were going to. It was the magic bullet to counteract this government's corrupt fiat currency that's truly an immoral practice that we kind of live in from an environmental perspective, that is, economically. So that was kind of some of the gist behind all of this. And I don't want to get into the technicals of Bitcoin, but I'll talk a little bit about their market cap. So as there's steam rolling around this concept, and believe me, I love this concept of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. I mean, people talk about it incessantly, but I have this different slant or view that is different from the bulls of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency per se. So over the past few years, the market cap really didn't do much between 2014 and 2017. All of a sudden, there was a great epiphany in the market of sorts that led to a record-breaking year in the market cap and overall growth and exchanges of Bitcoin. So in 2017, the market cap shot up around 20,000. And when it hit 20,000 is when people are like, holy cow, this is incredible. It's going to the fucking moon. We need to make sure we're putting some money into there. Hell, even our IRAs or our personal retirement accounts, we're really going to scoop up this Bitcoin because it's now digital gold. And that's what people were marketing it as then, and they are now 2.5 years later. Well, if you look at the market cap from that peak of 20,000-ish until today, where we stand around $7,000 real time, what does that tell you? If you purchased Bitcoin at that pseudo blowout top there in 2017, you've literally lost over half of your worth of Bitcoin, which is half of the currency that you initially shelled out to purchase that Bitcoin. So where do you stand if you got in when the moment was hot there and the blow off top towards the end of 2017? You stand to be a pitiful loser. And why do I mention that? Well, I mention it because people keep talking as if cryptocurrency and Bitcoin are the way of the future, and that's where we need to go, and there's no end in sight, and it's only getting better. Well, in fact, it's mostly getting worse. There was a little rally there towards the end of 2018, early 2019, I suppose, which got it up over 10,000 again, but then it came crashing back down to where it stands presently. So ultimately what you have in Bitcoin is you have a lot of people who bought a little tiny amount of it because they were suckered into purchasing it through some sort of marketing by whales or people on CNBC or any of these financial outlets. So when they purchase it, they're just kind of holding on to it because they probably don't even know how to get it off their hands. So there's probably a few million people who just have, millions of people, that is, who have tiny, tiny quantities of Bitcoin who just really, maybe they put in $100, now they have $70 worth because they took a big hit or something. I don't know. That's probably a huge portion of it. Another huge portion of it is probably just this 10 to 20 people who are maybe true billionaires or multimillionaires who are the whales moving the market. For all I know, there's some market manipulation going on, which doesn't really happen much in the stock exchange world because that's regulated heavily by the SEC. But in Bitcoin, it can be more of a free-for-all. And when it's a free-for-all, it only takes a couple millionaire or billionaire buddies to call each other up and say they're going to buy in droves. When they do that, it incites more sucker rallies for some of these people who have $100 or $200 to spare to throw it in there only to lose it or maybe not even know how to empty it out of their Bitcoin wallet. So that's really what's going on. It's nothing substantive. People aren't really using it to transact at grocery stores or gas stations or to purchase any other items. It's totally possible and available to do that. And that's what the crypto and Bitcoin community wants you to think. That's what they want to market it as. They want to say there's a lot of utility here and that it's really a currency that won't lose value. There's only a finite amount of Bitcoin. And with this finite amount of Bitcoin, you know that your purchasing power will never diminish. But the market cap is all over the place. And eventually it's going to plummet. Much like anything, any new innovation, whether it was social media or cars or anything, there's always a prototype that has to be bettered upon or eradicated completely and redid. And much like Facebook, that its predecessor was MySpace, or much like a car, its predecessor was a horse and buggy, or much like really anything you think of in the world, there's got to be advancements. And where I think cryptocurrency can succeed is probably not being tethered to the idea that Bitcoin is the way to go. Because Bitcoin, while it was one of the first, maybe it was the first, there was only a few types of cryptocurrencies on the market at that time. And now, as years go on, they're growing infinitely. I mean, I think we have over 1,000 or so different types of cryptocurrencies. A lot of media and social media type influencers are creating their own types of currency. I mean, I think the worm, Dennis Rodman, has his own weed type of currency. I mean, so you see where this is going. None of these things are actually rooted in any value at all whatsoever. So that really pisses off and bugs out a lot of libertarians. I know that when I'm saying that, but it's just true. There is no inherent value to cryptocurrency, probably 99% of it. I mean, some of it might be tethered to something. I don't really know what's out there, what's being explored or examined, what the smart people are doing, but there is no inherent value. It's just what gives Bitcoin value or cryptocurrency in general is that people will accept it and they will use it for now, for whatever reason. They'll just change hands with it to play hot potato until it bottoms out. And when I say bottoms out, until the whales get out, but why do the whales get out anytime soon? They got this racket they're peddling where all these sucker rallies, well, these people every single year, somebody turns 18 and maybe their parents give them a little more money or they can get a job and they're going to go buy some of this and the sucker rallies will continue and continue. It might become some annual saga for people who are late teenagers. It might become some annual payday for people who are whales. The entire thing is just littered with market manipulation. It's an utter joke. That's not how a true market ought to work. It's a huge speculative mania, much like that of the tulip mania back in the day, the dot-com bubble. That's all it is. Or the real estate bubble that transpired in 2007. That's all it is. It's nothing more than that. And I hate to be that person, much to my chagrin, to state the obvious about this, but that's just the case. There are people who became millionaires overnight buying Bitcoin early on. And I wish I would have done that. I would have been fucking hailed as a genius and some super intelligent investor. While I wouldn't have been, I would have just been lucky. I would have been one of the first ones in. I mean, the first people there usually are the people who take home all the money. That's really all it boils down to. So there's a lot of avenues I can go with this, talking about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency in general. And the reason I think it doesn't have viability is not as much about the blockchain, because I think the blockchain is an incredible amount of utility. It can be used in any aspect of the economy for any purpose, whether it's automotive, medicine, hell, even the cryptocurrency I'm talking about. Maybe blockchain and cryptocurrencies maybe in tune with each other. I mean, they're essentially the same thing. The blockchain creates the cryptocurrency, and that's what it's, that's the undergird of it. But maybe in the future, we could see a world in which we do use cryptocurrency. I don't know, but it has to be tethered to something of actual inherent value. But that's really not the main issue. Where I think Bitcoin and cryptocurrency are faulty is because of the exposure they're putting on themselves. Congress has already summoned a lot of people in the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency community to testify. And the reason they're doing this is because, of course, the federal government, any government in general by nature, is going to want to micromanage and overregulate the shit out of something like this. The government hates competition. So even if it was viable and it had inherent value, cryptocurrency and Bitcoin that is, the government regulators are going to come in and stifle it completely. The government demands a monopoly in currency because they're the ones who suck up all the tax dollars. They're the ones who regulate the economy. They're the ones who put the money into the buckets with their social engineering agendas. They're the people who do all of these things. So once they're on the radar, the Bitcoin people and the crypto community, that is, of the federal government, party over, they're done. There's no way around it. The government is going to be able to completely body bag them. So now if Bitcoin or cryptocurrency was utilized to allow someone to transact quickly and cheaply and affordably, much like that of a Venmo or a Cash App, or maybe someone could pull it out of an ATM, or you could use it instantaneously to purchase something at a store. Well, these things are no longer going to be quick, efficient, and inexpensive, or at least from a standpoint of being quick, efficient, or more inexpensive of that of using a general dollar or credit card. There's just no way they can undermine the regular currency we got floating around. And then people, for the most part, in the United States are broke. And that's not a joke. Most people go paycheck to paycheck. Most people have no retirement savings. Most people don't have any discretionary money to throw around, disposable income. I mean, most people don't have those things. So why would an intelligent person who goes paycheck to paycheck, because a lot of people who are going paycheck to paycheck are super intelligent, just they go paycheck to paycheck. Why would they risk their money dropping in half in value over half in under 2 years? Much like the case of Bitcoin. Why the fuck would they do that? It doesn't even make any sense. So there's inherent risk that your money could be worth kablooey in the short term or long run, which it is in fact worth nothing. And then there's the risk that it's not going to provide any more utility at all because the federal government's going to come in and regulate the fuck out of everything, much like they do anything, including social media. So the government doesn't like election results. Of course, they're going to come in and they're going to regulate social media and who's allowed to speak, kind of like yours truly. Who's allowed to shell out the facts, kind of like yours truly. They don't like that. The government doesn't like truth or competition or the free marketplace of ideas. They hate it. So Facebook came up with this idea of Libra. It's their cryptocurrency. And where I thought it made sense to use Libra as opposed to any other type of cryptocurrency or Bitcoin is that Libra was actually tethered to, I think they take a basket of 10 to 20 currencies in the world, just a diversified basket of currencies. And they kind of sliver them all up to create their Libra. Essentially, kind of like you're purchasing a share of stock or you're purchasing some sort of mutual fund or 401k that's comprised of certain investments or anything along those lines. I mean, essentially, they're literally taking 10 or 20 currencies, they're bundling them all up and calling that Libra. So as the world's currencies are manipulated, let's say part of that basket's a good, some of the currencies go up, some go down, that provides that inherent stability of such. So I kind of like the idea of what Facebook's trying to do, but of course, regulators in the government are going to come in and fucking fuck with Facebook. They're not going to want Facebook to do something like that. Facebook has billions of people on their network. That's more than the entire citizenry of the United States. They could leverage all of those people and have people trading, buying, and selling things much like they already do with their Facebook marketplace, which is sort of undermining garage sales, rummage sales, and Amazon. And now they can undermine cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and fiat currency by creating this basket of currencies. And maybe they take the strongest currencies out there. Singapore or what would be Germany or countries that are thriving have a low GDP to debt ratio. And with that, that automatically means that the Libra's currency is more viable and stronger than that of the federal dollar. Of course, federal regulators are not going to want that to happen because all of a sudden people are going to be piling into the Libra and not the United States dollar, and the dollar plummets and tanks, and people are forced to move along from the Federal Reserve and central banking system. This is not a pie in the sky idea. This is something that truly could work, and kudos to Mark Zuckerberg and his team there for devoting intelligent people to figure all of this out. So ultimately, I hope that's where we're headed in 2020. I hope that Facebook's of the world and some of these other companies come up with a true viable currency that is not necessarily crypto or Bitcoin, but moreover, something that is truly inherently valuable, perhaps immutable, tangibly, and something that can combat our central banking system. So that's where I'll give the free market credence. I'll say shout out to Facebook and the whole idea with Libra and taking on central banking. And I want to say shout out to all the other cryptocurrency companies, but it seems like they're more so just selling a pyramid scheme, and really rich people are getting rich off it, and the first people got in are getting rich. But really, if you're the first person who got in, you got to be careful because you took a huge loss halfway through this blow off top here. So who really knows? But that's what I wanted to give my take on Bitcoin cryptocurrency. I know that definitely infuriates a lot of the free marketeer community, but if you're really thinking about what I said, everything I said is correct. I mean, there's nothing wrong with what I said at all. Now, if somebody has an idea and they want to challenge me on that and talk about some technical aspects of Bitcoin or crypto that I don't know about, that's fine, because I know the free market's always working around these things, and eventually something might get figured out. But someone's got to come out there and make a crypto backed by something like gold or some sort of precious metal. They got to do something along those lines to make it inherently valuable, or do something like Libra, just tether it to a basket of currencies. While those currencies are fiat in nature, there are currencies that are stronger than others, and that's better than a weak United States dollar, which we will have a weak United States dollar as time goes on. So I also wanted to mention 2020 in terms of the election and what to expect there. We are unbelievably, enough or not, 11 months from Election Day 2020. Hard to believe that Donald Trump is concluding his first term as president here in the United States this year. It's unbelievable. So Donald Trump is concluding his first term, and I've mentioned some of the things he's accomplished. I've mentioned some of the other things that he has not accomplished. And by and large, as a libertarian, I'm not very impressed. And as the stakes heat up in Iran and the Iraq vicinity, I'm definitely troubled where Donald Trump is going in terms of saber rattling and flexing his will in the Middle East. I don't think it's really called for. But at the end of the day, we'll see what shakes out. I truly don't know. I mean, the Middle East is just an anomaly. It's a mystery to everyone. It's just a figment of most people's imagination, what's going on out there. We don't really have any idea how much bombs are being thrown, how many lives are being lost. It's really just become a covert drone strike operation on behalf of the federal government. We shouldn't be picking sides over there at all. I think we all know that. But as a libertarian, I don't know. The whole thing is just kind of disturbing and troubling. I don't want to spend too much time thinking about that. But as it pertains to the 2020 election, we have a handful of people still in the race for the Dems. The Republicans, of course, have the incumbent Donald J. Trump, number 45, in office, just on the heels of the impeachment proceedings for which he was impeached. And now the Senate has to cast their votes as to whether or not they want to throw him out of office. But now Nancy Pelosi and the do-nothing Dems, as Donald Trump says, are, I guess, delaying this for an inordinate amount of time. No one really knows when the vote will be put forth in the Senate. But as far as I'm concerned, the further she drags it out towards the election, the only thing that will happen is it will infuriate people on the right more, fire them up a little bit more, energize Donald Trump's base, and maybe change a few minds in the middle there, the center left, to say, wow, this is such a sham and they hate this guy so much that maybe he's worth another 4 years. Because after all, the public thinks the economy is just roaring. Donald Trump has sold everyone that we need to keep America great because the economy is booming, and it's definitely not booming. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing as what Barack Obama had running along there for him for 8 years. Basically a bubble-infused, debt-ridden economy with fake, phony service-level jobs and true, authentic production overseas. So the public's just going to tap into laughing at the fury of the Democrats and laughing at the trolling of Donald Trump on his various social media accounts. I think I woke up this morning on New Year's and saw Donald Trump tweeted some picture saying, make Donald Trump's tweets matter. I mean, that's just hilarious. Like, kind of a juxtaposition that Black Lives Matter. It's Donald Trump's tweets matter. Like, that's pretty fucking hilarious. I mean, the guy's going to continue to troll his way into the White House in 2020. Unless the floor falls out of the economy, in air quotes, he's got it in the bag. I mean, nobody they put forth is going to be able to touch him. I thought all along, and I've predicted that it would be Elizabeth Warren, and that was the establishment's favorites, but it's looking like she's taking a whacking. I think the past debate, she ended dead last. It looks like presently at the moment, Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, I still don't know how to say the guy's name, and I don't know. I mean, those are really the two people right now that are there to combat Donald Trump, I guess. That's who's towards the top of the Democratic ticket. Cory Booker's fucking around a little bit, Amy Klobuchar, but it looks like Joe Biden, Mayor Pete, and then Liz Warren, I guess, still around at the top three. I mean, that's a pathetic top three. Oh, I forget to mention Bernie Sanders as well. The Democratic Party won't allow Bernie Sanders to be president. That's just not happening. But I guess, and the other thing is the Democrats, as hypocrites as they are, they don't want a gay man running against Donald Trump. That's also not happening. So I suppose it's against Joe Biden and Liz Warren at this point. But the whole Pocahontas Act and angry finger waving of Elizabeth Warren, I mean, that really might set in with some left-leaning voters. They might say, we don't know if we necessarily want that. Is combating the fury and alpha male persona of Donald Trump going to work with some woman who's got some sort of mental health issues screaming about stuff? Or should we have some macho Scranton Joe figure who wants to put on the boxing gloves and go toe-to-toe with Donald? Because after all, we just need to defeat Donald. He's such a awful, terrible, evil, rotten person. So expect free goodies to be promised galore. Expect Andrew Yang to offer the UBI there, the universal income. I don't know what he calls it, the universal basic income. I think he's going to continue to promise free things for people, as will Bernie Sanders, as will Elizabeth Warren, as will Joe Biden, but to a lesser extent because he's trying to run to the middle because after all, he's a pretty middle-of-the-road guy who's a little more likable than that of the others in terms of old people, because Joe Biden came out with this bus tour, and a side of his buses was the term malarkey. No more malarkey. That's one of his famous catchphrases, the malarkey. We got to cut out the malarkey in Washington. That's what Donald Trump and his team are up to. They're up to all sorts of shenanigans and malarkey. And a lot of people thought that was old-fashioned and stupid, and you could pick on that marketing campaign, but it's actually brilliant. Whether Joe Biden came up with it or not, it was probably his marketing team. Young people do not vote. They don't give one fuck. They'll bitch on social media about wanting free things and about destroying the economy because they don't know what they're talking about. But they will not actually walk their asses to the polls. Much like the time in the last election when the Dems were furiously winning the election until all the Trump voters got out of work and really drove a stake in it. But this time around with Joe Biden, the malarkey tour makes sense because old people who all they want is their free goodies secured, Social Security, Medicare, and all of that. That's what they're clinging to. They cannot let those dear things dissipate or go away. And even Donald Trump, while he says he wants to save some of these systems, sometimes says some negative things about the programs, as he should. But all of these old people don't want to see these things disappear or go away because, they need sustenance. They need to live. They need to survive. And that's the little pittance the government gives them. So they want Joe Biden, and they're also retired, and they're also not working, or they're unable to work. So they show up to the polls and they vote. So the malarkey thing resonates to someone in their 80s, 70s, and 60s more so than that's to somebody in their 20s or 30s. And that doesn't matter because the old people are the ones who vote. So we're going to see a lot of free things flying around. And that's not what it means to be an American. Being an American means that your government is there to secure your liberties, to do what you want to do, to be free of someone killing you, harming you, hurting you, taxing you, regulating you. To be an American is to control your own destiny, to work hard, to be productive. We need income inequality. Without income inequality, there's no structure for someone to improve their lives and contribute to the greater good. We will never have this hedonistic society where people are sitting around jacking each other off and everybody has the same amount of money and nobody has to do any work. We don't have the artificial intelligence or robots to do that. We need inequality. Inequality is beautiful. It is what helps us. It's what incentivizes people to work harder, to be productive, to contribute to the overall human experience. Eliminating income inequality and inequality in general is a talking point for the left to promise free things and to acquire power. It is not to actually help people. It's very, very aggravating. I want people to understand that. A peaceable life is rooted in liberty and the ability to do whatever you want, so long as your right to swing your fist is short of the person's next to you's chin. That's all I got. Have a great first week of January. Cheer on my beloved Buffalo Bills, and I will see you next week with episode number 22. Thank you.